Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's Julia from the Paper and Ink Boutique. Just going to, sorry, just had to hop over there just so I can pull up your comments. Hello and good evening. Brianna is here with me. She is in the, well, off stage, I guess is what they call it. So she'll be popping your comments up on the screen so I can see them, or if you have any questions. And she'll be posting links for me as well. So hello, everyone. Starting with the camera facing down because I cannot get my forward-facing camera to work with StreamYard anymore. So I'll have to work on that. So hello, everyone. I'm right here. Okay, so tonight on Monday Night Live, we're going to be talking about embossed resist technique. So all of these samples I made are using the embossed resist technique. Now there's plenty of ways to do this. I'm going to be talking about a few, but there are other ways of doing this. I'm just going to show you some of my favorites. Now, before we get too far into this, I do want to remind you that we do have a Monday Night Live giveaway. And the giveaway tonight is a Distress Spray Stain tea dye and a Vintage Photo Distress Embossing Glaze. So how do you win? Well, you got to comment. And you got to comment during the live, because before we end tonight's Monday Night Live, I'm going to be running the giveaway tool that is currently collecting your names based on your comments. So you have to comment. It will run the giveaway tool right at the very end, and it will choose a winner. So there you go. Comment, and that Distress Spray Stain and Distress Embossing Glaze could be yours. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about some of my samples, and then I'm going to do a little demo for you. So this was actually this was the first one I made. This is kind of like your, I would say, kind of your basic emboss resist. So this is just a white piece of watercolor paper. I stamped it. I embossed it with white embossing powder. And then I sprayed it with some distress sprays. I sprayed it with a spritz, and then I inked the edges. So that was emboss resist on that one. There you go. The next one I made, this one here, the face I did on a separate piece of paper. And I stamped it with my VersaFine Clair. This is a pigment ink, so it stays sticky. So I put the clear embossing powder over the ink before it dried, heat embossed it. And then this is infusions. I put infusions on it, and then I let it dry. So where it's darker, I love the emboss resist because it pools. It pools, it just makes some different colors. So that's really great. But not only did I do emboss resist here, I did emboss resist on the background as well. And I'm going to be showing you that in just a moment. Here's another one I did. Now this, on my background, I actually used a stencil, put my embossing powder through the stencil. Sorry, nope, I'm backtracking. I actually used Distress Oxides in 2 colors. Did I write that? I didn't write that on there. This was Distress Oxides through a stencil. And then I put Distress Embossing Glaze over top, and I heat set it. And the new Spellbinders punch. Oh, are you talking about this one, Lynn? I did use the new, good eye, Lynn. I even forgot to mention that. I did use that new punch on this. Forgot the notch corner punch. Wow, Lynn, you're more with it than I am. And then I also did the emboss resist on here as well, and did a watercolor technique, which is also really fun. And then I did 3 bookmarks. These ones I did kind of in last minute. I wasn't going to do it. She is on it, Paula. Holy macaroni. I can't believe she caught that. Okay. So actually, this is another punch from Spellbinders that I used to make these too. I used the banner punch to make these bookmarks, which I thought were really fun. So again, emboss, and this was actually on black paper. This was on black, and I stamped with my embossing ink, heat set it with clear embossing powder, and then sprayed my Distress Oxide on it. Yeah, I love that one. Here's another one. I actually used the same stamp on both of these. It's hard to see this one. I have to tip it in the light to see it. But again, this one was on black. I stamped my that peacock feather stamp on there, and then I put ink over top of it. Sorry, I'll stop moving it so it can focus. And then this was actually the same stamp, the exact same stamp, but this time I just sprayed it with Distress Oxide spray, and I just let it dry. Just let it dry on its own. Yeah, I love how this one turned out. And then I added some gems. What's the name of that butterfly stamp? Oh, this one? I actually forgot to give the name of this one. This one is actually called Soft Wings, and it's from Indigo Blue. I think there was some left in stock yesterday when I made these. But it's called Soft Wings, and it's indigo blue, and it is really gorgeous. Yeah, really gorgeous. Okay, so I've shown you some samples. Now, one thing I'm going to show you these because a lot of people don't really know about the embossing glazes. So if you have never heard of these or never tried them, these are the Distress embossing glazes. And so they come in the Distress colors. Yeah. So I actually made 3 samples to show you 3 different ways to use one embossing glaze. Now, the one I used on all 3 of these was Lost Shadow. Lost Shadow is the only one I used on all 3 of these, but I do want to show you because they are all slightly different. This one I took my background stamp and I stamped it just with embossing ink. That's all I did, just embossing ink. And then I put my Lost Shadow embossing glaze over it and heat set it. I like that. That's gorgeous. I did spray the yellow on there. I just thought it might be easier to see if I added some color to the white. So that's just, I think that was mustard seed I used. Nope, squeezed lemonade. So that's just Lost Shadow embossing glaze over embossing ink. Now, this one, I use the Lost Shadow Distress Oxide, stamped it, and because the oxides have a pigment in them, that ink stays sticky. So after I stamped it, I put on my Lost Shadow embossing glaze and then heat set it. If I put these side by side, especially down here at the bottom, you can see the Lost Shadow embossing glaze over the Lost Shadow the Lost Shadow Distress Oxide. It's darker because I'm putting a translucent embossing glaze over the same color of embossing ink, so it makes it darker. But not only that, you can experiment putting embossing glazes over top of other ink colors. So this one here, I actually put Lost Shadow embossing glaze over Salty Ocean. So it actually gives it kind of a deeper, richer look to it. So Lost Shadow embossing glaze over Salty Ocean Distress Oxide. So yeah. So because these are translucent, you can actually make new colors. So say I'm putting Salty Ocean embossing glaze over mustard seed, it's actually going to turn green. So yeah, really kind of cool. So if you have the Distress Oxides and you haven't really played with them a lot, play with them and put them over top of other Distress Oxide colors and you'll get completely different colors, which is really cool. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you because a lot of people don't really don't really know that. Okay, so here is another bookmark. So I have stamped it with, sorry. I have stamped this with that soft wing stamp with embossing ink and clear embossing powder. That's all that is on there. And then I dried it. So I didn't want to take a whole lot of time and waste it embossing, but I did want to show you. All right, I'm just going to lower my camera just so you've got a better look here. There we go. Okay, so this has already been embossed and heat set with clear embossing powder. So I'm just kind of going to give you the Distress Oxide. Now, I love the Distress Oxide on black. Let me just grab a color here. Actually, let's grab two. So the Distress Oxides, if you're not familiar, these are part pigment, part dye, and they are opaque where the Distress spray stains are translucent. So you can use them together. Sorry, I'm just going to shake these off camera so it's not going to drown out my... I do too, Bev. Isn't that cool? Look how cool that is. That's awesome. It is very pretty, just like that. But if you wanted to do an emboss resist, I can take my sprays. I'm just going to spray that a little bit on there. Let me take my mustard. What is this one? Mustard seed. That doesn't spray very good, but there we go. I might add a bit more of the pink. Pink and yellow make a beautiful orange color, but look what that does. Isn't that stunning? So wherever that embossed image is, it's going to resist. It's going to resist the sprays that I just put on there. Now, I suggest leaving this. I suggest leaving it to just dry on its own. That's what I did with this one, is I sprayed it and then I walked away. I'm like, don't mess with it. Just walk away. So that's what I did. So, but look how cool that is. That's amazing. I love that. Now, this one here, I'm just going to bring this one in just as another, just so I can show you. So this one here, actually, let me bring in all three and I'll tell you what I did. So this one, stamped, embossed, sprayed, and left. This one, embossed, sprayed, then I sprayed it with some water, and then I sprayed a little bit more, and then I heat set it. So you can see by adding the water and heat setting it, it kind of washed it out a little bit. I still like it. There's nothing wrong with it. Looks pretty good. Still like it. But I did add some of the, which one is it here? This one. I did add this. This is that gold Yasutomo watercolor to the edge. So you can see the gold edging I put on there. But this, I would basically just walk away and leave it. So I'm actually going to set this one off to the side. Now there's quite a bit of ink on there, so I'm not sure if it would be completely dry by the end, but I'm not going to spray it with any water. I'm not going to wipe it away. I'm just going to let it dry on its own. But look how gorgeous that is. Isn't that stunning? And the ink colors, like I said, I used these two, saltwater taffy and mustard seed. But look at the really cool orange color. I've got the pink, I've got the mustard seed, and then in between where they've mixed, I've got this really great orange color, which is fantastic. Okay, I'm just going to set this one off to the side. I'll try and remember to come back to that one at the end. Okay, let me get rid of that one too. So that is basically just an easy distress resist where you stamp your image, you put on your embossing powder, whether it's a glaze, embossing powder, whatever it might be, and then put your sprays over top of it. Okay, let's go. Let me go over here and see what else I've got, because I've already pre-stamped a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, here we go. So here's another one. Now this is an indigo blue stamp. This one is, oh, I'm sorry. I just saw Brianna put the Monday Night Live deal up. I completely forgot to talk about that. We do have a Monday Night Live deal running, demo deal today and tomorrow, and it's 25% off embossing powders and glazes and 25% off sprays. It doesn't include the new Distress Spritz release from Tim Holtz, which we still have on pre-order. Um, but it does include all of the other sprays and the other spritzes, just not the new release. Okay, so this is the Kate stamp. Do I ever sleep? I actually do. I actually do. Whether my brain actually stops thinking is a whole other thing, but I actually do sleep. Okay, so this stamp, thank you, Brianna. I saw her put the link up there. This is the Kate stamp from Indigo Blue. If you don't I love the face stamp. The black paper I used is actually the black foundations paper from Vicky Boutin. And I will warn you, we have a lot of it in stock, but it has been discontinued. And it is my favorite black mixed media paper. And I'm very upset that it's no longer available. So I actually just bought 4 more pads. I love it, but it has been discontinued. So again, this is the Kate stamp. I use this face, and you'll also see me. I'm going to talk about this. I've also used this image here. I've also used that peacock feather. Okay, so this is on the Vicky. No, this is on the Prism Studio watercolor paper. A lot of my samples is using this, the Prism Studio watercolor paper. It's 140 pounds. I really like it. It's 9 by 12. And one of the reasons I like it is one side is slightly textured and one side is flat. So if I'm doing any stamping, I make sure to do it on the flat side so I get a really crisp image. Okay, so this image I stamped with my VersaFine Clair Nocturne. It is a pigment ink. So when you see pigment ink, that means that ink is going to stay slightly sticky for a while, which means, hello, Nancy B, which means once you stamp it, you can take your embossing powder and it will stick wherever that ink is. So Distress Oxides have a pigment, VersaFine Clair pigment. So I stamp this with my VersaFine Clair, and then I put a clear gloss superfine embossing powder over top. Right, Suzanne? I was so upset. When I heard that, I stocked up. I don't know why they discontinued it because it's amazing and I love it so much. Okay, so Emboss Resist Watercolor. And I just realized I might have zoomed in a little bit too far, but we're going to work with it. Maybe move up just a smidge. There we go. Okay, so I'm actually going to use some of my infusions. And let me grab some brushes. I do have some brushes here. Let me grab those. Oops. Here we go. Okay. Oh, the clear powder. I love the clear powder. It's my favorite. That's why I have the large jar. I don't know if we have any left in stock, but I love the large jar. Okay, this is what I'm using here. This is the Waffle Flower mini ink cube holder. And I might not have cleaned this up very good this afternoon, but I'm using the same color, so it shouldn't matter. So yes, your mini ink cubes fit in here. Your distress ink cubes fit in here. Any little mini square ink cubes will fit in here. I actually use it for watercolor. So I'm going to take my spray bottle and I'm just going to go along and I'm going to put water in there. So yeah, that's just plain water. And now I'm going to take some infusions and I'm going to tap it in some of those recesses. So let me use that. What other color should we use? Terracotta, maybe. I don't know if I'll use really a whole lot of colors here. What else do I have? Maybe golden sands. Let's do that. I don't think I'll use 4. Okay, so I've got my infusions, I've got my water, and now I'm going to grab a brush. Let's bring her back in here as well. Okay, so I'm going to grab my brush. I think I'm going to get it a little bit wet. Here we go. That's good. Now, hang on. I usually like having, it's here, I'm just trying to get it. I'm just going to grab an extra piece of watercolor paper because when I pick it up, usually sometimes my brush is so saturated that I'll kind of do that and lift that off. Not sure if I'm liking that color too much. Might be a little bit too dark for what I'm thinking. I'm going to leave that color. Probably use that for another one. And let's do this. Okay, so remember this image is stamped and embossed. So the really good thing about that is now you've got these ridges that are on your stamped image. So I can add this, and the ridge between there is actually going to keep my ink in one spot. So I could come in with a separate color and add it right beside, and they're not going to mix. Now, when I do this, now I'm going to cut out this face, so I'm not too worried if I go outside the lines on the very outside. But you can see how, because that's embossed, basically it's raised, so it's going to contain that color in the area I put it, like so. Now I can come in and mix it. Maybe I do want to mix a couple of those colors just to make it look not quite so like a zebra. Let's add 2 colors so it actually looks, there we go. But look how cool that looks. Now I'm just going to set that one aside. I have another face here that I want to do the exact same thing with the exact same product, but in a different way. So one, we've done watercolor. Now this one, same image, stamped the exact same way, but this time I'm going to take my water bottle and I'm actually going to spray the entire image. So now my image is wet. Okay. So now I can grab, and I'm using infusions, but if you've got any other powder pigments, you can do the exact same thing. So I'm going to use black currant for this one. I'm going to open it up. Normally I would tap it on, but I do want to have a little bit more control than just tapping it on. So I'm going to grab a brush. I'm going to tip it in there and pick up some of those pigments on my brush. And now I'm going to tap it into the wet surface. This one I feel like I have a little bit less control than I do when I'm applying it directly with the brush. But you can get some really cool effects. So I'm just mostly focusing on her hair. But again, I'm tapping this brush, so some of those really tiny pigments are going to land in her face. But you know what? I don't mind that. And what I really like about infusions is you get that nice kind of explosion of color once it hits that water. So that's black currant. Let me grab, this one is called orange car. Sorry, I need to, somebody's trying to call me on my cell phone. You know, don't you know, it's Monday Night Live, people. Don't call me. I'm busy. Okay. So this is just another way of applying color to an embossed image. So there you go. I mean, it's a little wild, it's a little messy, But if I'm going to do this, I would apply this and then I'm just going to let it dry on its own. So I've already got some pigment on here that hasn't touched water. I don't know how I missed spots with water. So you can come in with more water and get a more explosion of color. But when I do this, I tend to oops, just walk away and let it dry on its own. Now, if I wanted to pick up some of this color, I can just get some paper towel. I can come in there and blot that away a little bit. I actually don't mind that her face is a little bit pink and orange. That's actually really cool. It's almost like she's standing in the sunset. Beautiful colors on her face. But you can blot away the excess off the areas where you don't want it. Look how pretty that is. I know you might be looking at it going, ooh, wow. But once you let it dry, and then I'm going to come in and cut that out, and it's going to look completely different. So I'm actually going to come because I like her lips on this one. So I'm actually going to just add color just to her lips. And then we'll let this dry. I blinked and missed your what? Yes, I did. This one I sprayed the entire face and then I took a dry brush and dipped it in my infusions and tapped it in on this one. So yeah, I love that. I'm not going to move this one a whole lot because there's a whole heck of a lot of water on that one. I might just put my paper towel along that edge because there's a lot of pooling there. I'm just going to try and pick up because I'm going to cut that off anyway, so I don't really need all that color along that edge. But look how cool that is. Isn't that beautiful? Lovely. Okay, I'm just going to set that up here. Okay, now back to this one. Like I said, you can do watercolor techniques, which is a lot of fun. And now I'm using colored pigments to color this in, but you can also do this with your re-inkers, your distress ink pads. You can watercolor this however you want. You can even paint this in. But when you have an embossed image, that maybe I will use a bit of that color. Oh yeah, that is a fun color. What was that one? Now I'm trying to remember what I used. Might have been Rusty Car. But I just like letting the watercolor kind of pool in there. And then you're going to, once it dries, you're going to get some really nice, you're going to get some darker areas. You're going to get some lighter areas. The paper that I'm using here, this is not Vicky Bouton Foundations paper. This is the Prism watercolor paper. It's 140 pounds. So it's the same weight as the foundations, but I am using the watercolor paper. You could definitely use the Vicky Bouton foundations. I just decided to use this one. So this is actually already started to dry on this outer edge. So I could always come in here with a different color and just add in some different shades. So there we go. I just love watercoloring in embossed images like this just because that the embossed areas will really contain those colors really well so you can actually get some really nice looks to it. Not saying you can't mix your colors, I am mixing them, but the way it pools in there and then when it dries, you just get this really nice look. It doesn't look flat, it looks like you've got some depth to it. I know Charlene's watching, so I'm a messy watercolorist where Charlene is like, she's like super like, you know, professional about it. I am not. I am not a professional watercolorist. I just like getting the color down. That is what I like doing. Sorry, sorry, Charlene. Are you like, what are you doing? I'm just kidding. We all have our artistic ways of doing things. Charlene's just more professional than I am. So, just a really easy way. And I really just like letting the color sit on the watercolor paper and just dry naturally rather than taking my tool to it. I just like letting it, just let those colors just do their thing. But again, it's personal preference. You might try this at home and be like, yeah, no, I don't like doing that. I personally love doing this. I could just stamp this face 100 times and just sit here and color it in different colors. I find it very relaxing, very, I don't know, kind of just calming. And like I said, I am not a professional. I am just about getting color on paper. Oh, thanks, Charlene. However, if you want to learn some really amazing techniques, take Charlene's class. So there we go. So you can see I've used those ridges to add different colors. It's giving me some different looks in between the waves of her hair. So there you go. There's that one. Ooh, gonna set that aside or else I'm gonna be making a mess. Okay. So two different ways. Now, obviously, ooh, yep, there we are. Focus. Um, this one is a lot messier, but when it dries and when you cut it out, it's going to look fantastic. So right now I'm just trying to pick up some of that ink that is pooling along the edge. We'll see if this dries in the next little while. Now, again, if you're worried about tons of paper, what I usually do is I'll just stick my paper towel in there. I try not to rub it too much, but I will just use the corner of the paper towel to just soak up some of that ink. And that will help it dry. The more moisture you get off of there. There we go. And it's already starting. You can already see that. Oh my gosh. I don't know if that's coming across on screen or not, but that is looking amazing. Okay. Now, do you have to only use sprays? You're right. They're both beautiful, Shelly. I like both of them. This one was a lot faster. This one was a lot more calming, a lot more, I like both of them. Okay, so I'm just going to set these both aside here for just a moment. Now, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to bring this back in. That's not looking too bad. Starting to dry, just right there in the middle. We still got some wet ink, so we'll leave that up there. Okay, so when it comes to embossing, do you just have to use sprays? Is it just sprays? No, it is not just sprays. So this I used a stencil. Let me find the stencil. It was stencil 446. This was Tracy Scott's last release, and I used the bamboo part of it. So I took a sponge with my embossing ink, put it through. And no, I didn't. Why do I keep saying that? I used Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn Distress Oxides through the stencil. I blended it with a blending brush. And then I took my, I thought it was an odd color to choose, but I did choose Speckled Egg. So this is Speckled Egg over top of Distress Oxide inks, Mowed Lawn, and Twisted Citron. And look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? That was fun. Okay. Do you just have to use sprays? Nope, absolutely not. You can use inks too. Let me. I'm going to bring this one back in because this one I did different. So if you remember this one from the beginning, I actually used the infusions. So what I did here, where I sprayed it with water and then dropped my infusions on it, that is what I did on the background of this one. And I believe I used the sage on the back of this one. But you can just blend it with your distress inks. I'm actually not going to use oxides. I'm going to use inks. I'm going to use broken china and cracked pistachio. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to use my brush, I'm going to pick up some ink, and I'm going to come over and just start blending that ink over top of my embossed image. Like so. Now you can blend this as much as you want. Maybe you want to, what else do I have here? Oh, peacock feathers. Let's try peacock feathers too. Okay. Now let me grab my green. Let's use cracked pistachio. I'm going to bring that up from down here, and we're going to blend that in. Okay, so I blended my ink over. Now, I obviously have ink sitting on top of my embossed areas. So I'm actually going to take a microfiber cloth, and you can come in and you can wipe back that ink off of your embossed areas, and it will just wipe off. So there you go. So I use my distress oxides, put my distress embossing glazes, and then I blended my ink over top of that, which is also really cool. I like doing that as well. I'm going to set this aside. I'm actually going to use that in a little bit. Okay, here we go. Here's another tag I did. There's that peacock feather. So this peacock feather, I stamped it with 3 colors of distress oxide. I used, I'm going to grab them out here, Villainous Potion, Salty Ocean, and Wilted Violet on the one stamp. So those are the 3 colors I used, and you can see them kind of down there. And because I used Distress Oxide, which has a pigment ink in it, then I dumped over my clear embossing powder, heat set it, and now I've got that. Now this ink, I actually used my VersaFine Clair. I use my VersaFine Clair just to do a little bit of this background stamping in black. So now what I can do, I'm going to bring in, nope, not that one. I'm going to use a spray stain, and I'm going to use a spritz. Just give me a moment to figure out what spritz I want to use. Picked raspberry. Now, if you don't know about the spritz, how is the spritz different from the micas? I'll let you know just in case you're wondering. So the Distress Mica sprays are a colored liquid with a tinted mica. The mica stains, mica sprays, are a colored liquid with a color mica. So the Distress Mica sprays are more opaque than the spritzes. The spritzes are more translucent. I'm just going to shake this up. You need to make sure that all of that pigment at the bottom is mixed in. And I'm getting there. Now, my nice little girls here, if I start spraying, they're going to get stuff all over them. So I'm going to move them over here, kind of out of the splash zone. Okay, so I'm going to take, this is picked raspberry. So just remember the black is not embossed. That is just an ink. The only thing that's embossed on here is the peacock feathers. So I'm going to come back with some more of the spray stain. Oh my, that is gorgeous. Look how gorgeous that is. Ah, okay. Let me take, oops, my light fell over. Okay, I'm not going to bother drying that, but look how gorgeous that is. I love mixing yellow and pink. I love the oranges that you get. It's just stunning. Oh, I didn't mean to wipe that up. I meant to use that for my next one, but that's all right. So just look at how gorgeous that is. And where that embossed feather is has resisted all the sprays that I put on there. Gorgeous. Okay, I'm running out of room. Holy moly. Okay, so here's another one of those feathers, just stamped and embossed on its own. But now what I'm going to do, actually, let me grab a different one. Hang on, I wanted to use a different spray stain. I'm going to use tumbled glass and hang on, trying to find it. Ah, here it is, wilted violet. So now I'm going to use these two. Yeah, I'm going to use these two spritzes. Now, instead of spraying it on, you can do the dip technique. So that's what I'm going to do. But before I do that, so I'll make sure I've got that kind of clean. And I forgot to shake these. It's really important when you're doing your spritz. If you can hear that ball in there, that is what's going to help you mix up those micas. Okay, we're good. Okay, so I'm going to take some. These are the spritzes. You could also do this with the spray stains or the oxides. There we go. So I sprayed them both on my work surface. I'm just going to take a smidge of water. Not much, just like 2 sprays. There we go. And now I'm going to take this and we're going to dip it in and add our color that way. And look how gorgeous. And so you can dip and dry and dip and dry. Look at that color. Oh my word, that is a stunning color. This one is going to be meant to be cut out. So I'm not worried about what this looks like. I'm mostly just focusing on the feather itself. But look how stunning that is. Now, I will warn you, when you've got an embossed image and you spray it with an ink or whatever it might be, if you're going to take your heat tool to it, you will reheat that embossing powder. It will reheat. So if you're going to heat it, which is fine, it'll work. Just don't touch it right away because it'll be hot. And I'm telling you this because I've done it and I burnt myself. So I'm telling you, don't do it. So I can come in and I can give this a dry. But see how subtle that coloring is? Now I can come in. I didn't dry it all the way. It's kind of wet. It's going to take a while to dry. But look at that. That is so gorgeous. Yeah, when you're reheating these, if they've got embossing powder on it, it will reheat that embossing ink. So just be careful. Do as I say, not as I do. Oh, that's stunning. So this would be one where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to let those colors just kind of soak into that watercolor paper and just really color that really well. That one is fun. Okay. I'm just going to set that aside too. Somehow my craft room's not that large and somehow I've lost my garbage. I don't know where it went. Okay. Um Let me come back here. How is she doing? She's doing not too bad. Let me switch her out. How's this one doing? Not too bad as well. Let's come back here. Let's look at this one. Oh, this one's actually doing really well, but let's give these a heat. Now, if you're impatient like me, some of you aren't, but if you are impatient like me, you can take a piece of clean paper towel and you can dab up color. That one looks gorgeous. Always make sure, especially if you're going into a different color, make sure you move your paper towel because you don't want to mix your colors, make mud. Oh my word, look how gorgeous. Absolutely stunning. I'm actually going to do this one. This one's a little bit drier. Okay, so I'm going to remember, just heated this. So the embossing powder could be a little bit warm. So I'm going to give it a minute or two to kind of cool down because it will go soft and you can leave your fingerprints in it. And then especially when I'm doing faces or butterflies, is then I will go in and cut them out. Not always, but I'm generally doing these so I can cut them out and add them to another project, a tag or in my art journal or whatever it might be. Again, I am not a neat fussy cutter. I'm just trying to get this out so I can show you. But embossing powders, embossing glazes, fabulous for resist techniques. So whether you have the glazes or embossing glazes, I mean, or maybe you've got um, just regular embossing powder, you can do resist techniques and you can do them with a lot of your inks, little different types of inks, your sprays, your powder inks, your powdered, like your infusions, brushos, color burst, all of those things can be used. So if you've never tried, oops, I'm getting ready to cut her head off. That's not good. I can't talk and cut at the same time. I'm good at multitasking, but there are some things I can't do. And like I said, I am doing this for time. I'm not really doing this for... Just going to cut out a few more pieces. But look how fun that turned out to be. Just a nice, fun way to decorate, to color. And like I said, when I colored it, I used 3 different colors. And look how the embossing has kept them separate. So it gives you a really great look. And like I said, sometimes I'll just sit down and I'll emboss just a ton of faces and I'll just sit here and color them. And then I won't necessarily cut them out at the time. I'll leave them. And then when I have a project, then I will cut them out. Now, another trick of Julia's, because Julia is not a really great or patient fussy cutter, I will come in with my black ink and I will just go along the edge to kind of hide all that white that I didn't cut out. Cheating, maybe, but I also feel like it adds a bit of a shadow around the head. There we go. And look how beautiful she turned out. Wipe that ink up before it dries. Now, this tag here, I could very easily pop her up on this tag, but this tag is not dry. Yeah, thanks for everyone for joining me. And even if you've joined late, don't worry. Still comment because you could still win our giveaway for tonight. So perfect. There we go. So I will probably pop her up somewhere on here. And probably add a sentiment on there. I don't know where I'll put her, but I think that looks so great. I think I need to add some color to her face. Probably do that. She's looking a little pale, so I'll probably add some color to her face. But look how gorgeous that turned out. Okay, so I am, hello, Tammy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my samples back in. I am going to tell you, for those of you joining late, we are doing a giveaway. We are giving away the Distress Spray Stain Tea Dye and the Distress Embossing Glaze Vintage Photo. Really fun. Really fun. So one of you is going to win that. I'm going to give you another minute or so to get in at least one comment while I bring back in some of the samples that I made. Here's that one that I made earlier today. I'm just going to move my camera up so you can see a little bit better. Here we go. So I did 3 tags. If you're wondering about which one, oh, this one. So these, if you're wondering where those butterflies came from, I actually got those out of this, the Golden Oldies Collector's Book by art by Marlene. And it's got all these images and they're already laser cut. You just have to pop them out. So I did these butterflies, but I did put embossing ink on them and put my clear glaze on them because they were quite matte and I wanted them to have a little bit of shimmer to them like everything else. So these are butterflies. That's where they're from. And the Be Brave, this is also from Indigo Blue. The Be Brave, the Be Bold. We're out of these. These are Kay's Journaling Words 1 and 2, which I love them. They're my favorite. And then let me bring in, oh, this one's coming out nice. I love that. The shimmer is amazing. Oh, focus. There we go. But it's still wet. And then here are some other bookmarks I made and then a card front. So there you go. I hope you learned something new about the distress, or not distress, emboss resist. I'm going to go over to the giveaway tool. Hang on. So we need to share screen. Give me a moment. Share screen. StreamYard, where are you? Okay, here we go. We are going to run the draw. Who is going to win? I saw Glenn's name. Glenn can't win. Glenn always tries to win, but he can't. So somebody, Jennifer Yoland. Jennifer Yoland, you've won the Distress Spray Stain and the Distress Embossing Glaze. So there you go. That's fun. Okay, so that is it for me. I'm sorry I can't pop up on my front camera because it's not working, but I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget about our demo deal that is still running for the rest of today online and in store and online all day tomorrow. So there you go. Take advantage of the deal. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. The Up next will be our dynamic duo. They will be up next week, and then I'll be back in 2 Mondays from now. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.